So the Clippers have a secret weapon this offseason, and it's not Kawhi Leonard getting healthy, which will help. It is Steve Ballmer's bank account. Normally, we have at least an idea of what a team with no cap space is gonna do, but with unlimited money, anything is possible. This guy is not afraid of the luxury tax. He's the richest owner in American sports. Ballmer has more money than the next 6 richest guys combined. So that makes for a really interesting offseason, but first, the basics. Cap space, like I said, $0. Exceptions, just the $6.4 million mid-level. Needs, health, backup center, and backup point guard. Draft, they just have a second-round pick because obviously their first is going to OKC. Relevant free agents, this is a big one. Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Let's have a look at last season. They were projected for 45.5 wins. They just missed the mark with 42 wins. Now, because the Clippers have unlimited money, we're gonna do 3 off-season plans. Each one gets a little crazier. Plan number 1, re-sign their own guys. The Clips really have those 3 important free agents, Batum, Rocco, and Hartenstein. Why not re-sign all 3 and just run it back with a healthy Kawhi and Paul George? Sam Presti of the Thunder already said he thinks easily the favorite is the Clippers. I mean, all it takes is money. They start with a $19 million luxury tax bill for next season, no matter what. You add on Batum for the $11 million that he can make. The tax bill now is $41.5 million. Re-sign Rocco. He's able to make $13.6. That raises the tax to $97 million. And finally, Isaiah Hartenstein, the best backup center in the NBA last year, will probably get the $6.4 million mid-level, which puts the tax at $135 million. If you add in the other players' salaries, Ballmer will pay $334 million, the second most expensive team ever. Number 1 is this year's Warriors, actually, and they won 3 chips. That is a lot to pay for an unproven roster. Most teams cannot afford to do this kind of move, but that is the benefit of having an owner worth almost $80 billion. Plan number 2, make a trade. Now, they already made trades, getting Robert Covington and Norman Powell during the offseason, but what if they kept pushing? The Clippers actually have assets to make an interesting deal. Marcus Morris is a decent two-way wing, but do they really need him? I mean, they're pretty deep at that position. Kawhi, PG, Batum, Rocco, Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard. What if they packaged Morris with a first-round pick? And I know, they already owe like all their first to OKC, but not in 2028 or 29. What if the Pacers took Marcus Morris and that 2028 first so the Clippers could get Miles Turner? The Clips would upgrade big time at center. Look, Zubac is decent, right? But he would be an elite backup. And I know this is a gamble because you're sending out yet another first round pick, but they get Turner's bird rights and they can re-sign him. Plus, I look at a team like the Rockets in the James Harden days. They always sent out their first round picks, like no matter what, right? Like they were worthless. And then when things didn't work out, they flipped Harden and recouped a bunch of firsts. But plan number 3 is to just blow it up. And I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. What if Steve Ballmer is secretly upset about this team? Dude paid billions for this, and he got Kawhi, who's always injured, Paul George, who somehow let himself get COVID before that last playing game. How does that happen? And 3 seasons into this, not even a finals run. What if Ballmer decides to trade one or both of his big pieces for a different superstar? He could trade Kawhi or PG for any one of these big names. Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Davis, Zach LaVine, James Harden, or Jimmy Butler. All of those stars are on contending teams that might want to shake things up themselves. I didn't include Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard because those teams would be rebuilding. If they traded their star, they'd have no use for Kawhi or PG. Now, obviously, this plan is not likely to happen, but it is fun to think about. I think they are most likely to go for plan number 1 and re-sign all their guys. But whatever happens, there are still 3 huge priorities for the Clippers. And the first priority is the NBA draft. And I know all they have is their second round pick, but that means they have to nail it. The good news is this front office has a good track record late in the draft. The last few years, they have identified Terrence Mann and BJ Boston who they got through a trade, but in the second round. Also, they signed Amir Coffey after going undrafted. This is an important pick, and I would love to see them take Jalen Williams, a center from Arkansas. And what I love about this pick is he's a backup center just in case they lose Hartenstein, and his skill set fits. Jalen doesn't need the ball to be effective, and he complements a team that has shooters. He sets great screens, grabs rebounds, and can protect the rim. In the future, he might even become a floor spacing big because he's got a great shooting form. The next priority is to target free agency. And I already said that they should use the mid-level exception to re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein unless they get outbid there, but they will have at least the veterans minimum to fill out the roster. Last year, the Lakers got Malik Monk, Carmelo Anthony for the vets minimum, so there's no reason the Clips can't lure big names to LA. What about Joe Ingles? How sick would it be for a smart veteran guard like Ingles to be on this team? I know he is like the least athletic guy in the NBA, but dude is an elite three-point shooter who can create out of the pick and roll. The Jazz had the #1 offense with Ingles in their rotation, and I think after that ACL tear and at 34 years old, he could be signed for the vet minimum. What about Goran Dragic? One of the top priorities should be a backup point guard. In the games that Reggie Jackson missed this year, the Clippers started Eric Bledsoe and Terrence Mann, who is a 2-guard. That is a problem. Dragic, though, would be an A+ backup with playoff experience. Next up, Bismack Biyombo. This is insurance at backup center if they lose Hartenstein in free agency, which could happen. And yes, Biyombo isn't elite at anything, but he is a decent finisher and rim protector, more than a solid backup 5, better than someone else out there like Frank Kaminsky. Next up, Nemanja Bjelica. He is insurance if they lose Nick Batum at the 4. Bjelica would obviously be a downgrade defensively, but he is a stretch 4 that can play small ball 5. The next Clippers priority this offseason is to extend Ivica Zubac. Like I said, he is not an elite center, but at $15 million a year, he would be a great value. He's eligible for a 4-year extension after they pick up his team option, and Zoo quietly had an excellent year. A career-high 10 points and 8 boards a game, and he was a top 10 center in defensive real plus-minus. There is a serious risk of losing Hartenstein in free agency, so the Clips must lock in Zubac long term. If the opportunity to somehow get an elite center comes up later, they can do that. They can always trade him, but first, they have to lock in Zoo for 4 more years. Hey guys, hit subscribe. I rarely say that anymore, but like 70% of you aren't subscribed, so I'm just gonna throw it out there. But we've been getting some really good suggestions on which offseason teams we should do next. The Pacers we've gotten talked about. I really loved the Blazers idea, and we're gonna do that one coming up real soon. But let me know down in the comments which team we should do next. In the meantime, check out our off-season playlist. We are gonna get to all 30 teams.